Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Electric Conversations. It's show number 52. Now, I have been excited about a lot of the shows that we've done. And, we've had a chance to talk to a lot of EV owners who have given us some great insight into their experience with this new technology. And today, we're going to do that as well. But this EV owner is unlike any of the EV owners we've had on our show to date. And man, does he like going fast in these cars. Let's take a look at this video and we'll come back and introduce you to our guest in just a moment.
I told her, welcome to the future. It's just how it is. I'm a user.
All right, everyone, I'd like to introduce you to Ellis Spezia. Ellis, thank you so much for joining us here on Electric Conversations.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's awesome to meet new people in this space. So yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, it's our pleasure. So we showed you racing around the track there. Tell us about the vehicle you're driving and how you got into it.
Yeah, so in that video, you see the Project E20, which is built by the Rotax team. That's what I'm racing over here in Germany in the DEKM. And they released it in 2020, and this is their second year running it. And it's fast, and it's definitely interesting to see the different approaches that these different companies have with these electric carts. But it's fast, and it's getting close to the performance that they really want. So 25 kilowatts, so 30 horsepower, which for a cart that weighs basically nothing is more than enough power.
Well, you say it's fast. And when most people hear 30 horsepower, I mean, I had a car years ago that was 400 horsepower. So that sounds fast to me. But I'm guessing your vehicle could probably go almost as fast as that one that I was in. So when you say fast, what sort of speeds are you talking about in these e-carts?
Yeah, so speeds always depend on the track, but it seems to be about the top speed that we hit is 125 kilometers an hour. So it's definitely up there, and it's really the ratio of the power to weight is where you have all that performance. Is it's that lightweight kind of design that lets it be fast with that much power that you don't need the normal power of a road car.
Well, and to be clear, you're an American, so hearing you talk in kilometers is a little bit shocking to me. But of course, you're racing over in Germany right now. So when you say 125 kilometers, for our American listeners, that's about 75 miles an hour. You're sitting almost on the ground. Basically, the only protection you seem to have is probably a good pair of gloves and a helmet.
Yeah.
So tell me what that's like when you're going at those speeds.
It definitely makes things feel a little bit faster than they actually are. But it really goes down to that's how karting has always been. And it's the purest form of motorsport. There's basically as bare bones as you can get with a vehicle is it's got only what you need and there's nothing extra. So I really like it. I like the way it kind of feels. And definitely if it's hot out, there's a nice breeze going over you when you're driving. So there's definitely a safety aspect that is different from most racing, but it's definitely a lot of fun.
So I guess, are you aware of the fact that you're going that fast, that you have so little protection, and that something could go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what racing is, really, is it's that, I've always seen as a lot of the professional drivers say you need just enough fear to keep you on the road. But as you get better as a driver, even though you're going fast, as things start to feel slow. So once you get used to that speed, it kind of becomes natural. But sometimes you do have a moment where you're like, oh, I'm going the same speed you go on the highway, except I don't have a seatbelt and I'm sitting on the floor. So it's definitely something that takes some getting used to.
That is a great way to describe it. Now tell me how you were the youngest guest that we've had on our show so far. You're 15 years old. How did you get into racing, and how do you end up racing in Europe?
Yeah, so I kind of loved cars and racing since I was, since as long as I can remember. So it's kind of always been, in my blood, I like to say, but I actually didn't start until 2019 racing competitively. And really just electric gives me so many more opportunities that I wouldn't find with normal combustion karting. So to have, being able to meet the people that I meet and compete against the drivers I get to compete against is you can't find that anywhere else except here in Europe. Is there's nothing like that in the States. So that's why we're over here for 8 months doing what we're doing.
So you are from New Jersey. So tell me about the steps that you've taken to get to this stage.
Yeah. So for 2 years, as I was doing an indoor competitive league, so it was kind of like the normal rental carts you go and do basically anywhere. K1 Speed, Autobahn, RPM is some of the names that are the big ones. But I did those for 2 years, and I kind of won those championships and felt that I was ready to go to the next step. And then through a lot of research, as we found a championship in Spain called Play and Drive, and that was the first experience of a real go-kart. And but even before that, for 3 or 4 years, as I was racing virtually on an Xbox. So it's definitely a less kind of common path that I've taken to get to where I am, but it's been a lot of fun so far.
So you mentioned that you were doing it virtually. I mean, when I was young, I played Pong. It didn't make me any better a racket sport person. So I'm curious, how does it work for you doing it virtually and then transferring those skills to the track?
Yeah, so it's for us, we call it sim racing, is it's simulation racing. So we have the same tracks that we're racing here in real life. So they're laser scanned into the program, and we're racing like we would, like it's a real car. And it's really the only kind of esport that you can have direct competition that translates to real life. If you play LeBron James in an NBA game, you're not going to beat him at basketball, but I can race, if I wanted to race Lewis Hamilton on a simulator, it's pretty close. It's not perfect, but it's definitely something that is getting better and better, and it's only can go up. And I think COVID really proved how strong it was as an esport.
I feel like you're making a judgment on my basketball skills by saying LeBron James on that and not being able to take him in basketball. I mean, come on. You don't know me. And so let me just say that. Unless you're just judging by the color of my hair and making some assumptions.
We'll go play basketball, and then we'll go to a go-kart track, and then that'll be our competition.
that sounds good. So you're able to race the track. Do you find then that when you hit the track that it's a direct transfer? You know what's coming up. Do you get that sensation still, or there's still something about the actual racing on a track that is different?
I think for the way, things are right now with sim racing, is it's still growing and evolving. I can get a general idea of, the way the cart or car will handle on a track by racing it on the sim. But there's always, that extra 5% that you can only get from driving the real thing. So I usually use it to just learn the track. So I'm not spending a session or two learning the track layout, is I can jump right in and know, the general places to brake and, what turn comes up where. And that's kind of what I've used it for.
One of the things that I noticed on your, I think it was your website, you make the statement that you don't come to racing naturally. This is not something that your dad or your mom did. And so, it's like, I mean, here in Canada, or I imagine in New Jersey as well, if you were interested in hockey, your parents would likely know where to take you, or in the States, baseball or football as well. Whether they played, it would still be pretty easy to find that out. What has the process been like for you to find out about e-kart racing and take that step?
It's really just a lot of research, and that's kind of the way things are right now. Is there's very few e-kart series and companies compared to combustion. So it really was just, my mom is the research master, and we say she's the general manager of the universe. So she was able to find these series, as I'm competing in 3 this year, and that's the DEKM with Rotax, Play and Drive, and Blue Shock, and those are kind of the three big ones that are in Europe here right now. And it's just a lot of research, and Instagram is a great place to kind of find these carts that are either being developed or already developed. So yeah, just research.
So what's it like for you? What was it like? Do you remember what it was like for you the first time you got in one of these powerful e-carts? Because I think back, and I had a chance to do a couple of celebrity races when I was younger, and celebrity. So I've said this before, I was in the news, so you get certain opportunities. And I had a chance to race Bomber Class, which is basically a car that's held together by glue, and modified. And I remember the first time I sat in the car and at the starting line, I felt excited. My body was fine, but the foot that had to go on the gas pedal was shaking like this, And so what was it like for you that first time sitting in the car and realizing you're in and your race was more competitive? I mean, media people can be competitive, but in the end, it was for fun. But it was an actual race. So tell me what it was like that first time getting behind the wheel of one of these e-carts, knowing you're going to be going like 70, 80 miles an hour and people will be racing against you.
Yeah, so it's something that's always intimidating, hopping in something that fast, never doing it before. And I think it kind of feels like you're getting dragged around by a bull, is because they're so powerful and they're so, there's no suspension. So you're bouncing around everywhere and you're going really fast, and it hurts your ribs and your neck, and it's kind of just like all over the place. But it was definitely something that took a lot of getting used to. And I think that's something that I've worked on a lot, is getting used to the speed and the feeling, and really just, being able to hop in and go and not take that long to get back up to speed. As far as the racing goes, you're going that fast, but then there's 15 other people around you also going that fast, trying to go past you. So it's a lot of information to take in at once while you're trying to stay on the road.
And so that first race, were you able to jump out? I mean, I was fortunate because I got the post. So yeah. I was out in front for, I didn't finish out in front, but I was out in front for a little while, and that was quite a treat. But what was that first race like in your gut? What did you feel?
It's always those like butterflies in your stomachs feeling when you're at the starting line and you're ready to go and you're like, okay, this is happening. Like, it's going to be my first race. I just have to finish and stay on the road and keep everything in one piece. It was definitely intimidating. I got lucky. My first race is there was kind of a big mess into the first corner, so I made up a couple spots, but it's kind of like overwhelming, is because there's a lot going on. There's lots of noise from the tires, and there's announcers on the speakers, and there's you have to get the lights right because it goes 5 lights and then they turn off and then you go. So it was a lot of information to take in, and it was a bit intimidating, and it's very mentally tiring at the end of the day.
Well, tell me about the noise, because of course, I mean, when you're racing Bomber Class and internal combustion vehicles, there is a lot of noise. And I think at the media level, you're able to intimidate your fellow racers. What sort of things? First, tell me about the noise, because there isn't noise with an electric car.
Yeah, so the noise is kind of interesting. It's unique to every cart. Some carts have a lot of active cooling, so lots of fans going. So it's some carts, it's a lot of like wind noise. And others, like the Rotax, it's water cooled, so there's no real noise from any cooling. So it's really just the motor that kind of has that signature hum sound. And it's really a lot of the tires, is you can really hear the tires lose grip or scrub, which is when they kind of understeer and you just go straight. So it's actually an interesting thing for a driver to be able to hear the tires in a different way instead of having this loud motor next to you.
Could you hear somebody yelling at you if you were in their way?
You probably could. I think I've definitely shouted into my helmet a couple times.
Yeah.
But the noise is something that, it's interesting. The gas cart drivers, when they come over and they try it, I think it helps me focus, and it keeps kind of my heart rate down, my adrenaline down. And it's just something unique to electric that, you know, people are going to have to get used to.
Well, and you know, these carts, I mean, we talk about Teslas and how fast they are off the starting line. How fast are these carts when it comes to getting up to speed?
We're fast. I think we go up to 0 to 60 in around 2 seconds. So it's
Wow.
definitely up there in acceleration. And again, that's the power to weight that really what makes karting special is, you know, you only have, you know, 30 horsepower, 35 horsepower, but you are also only carrying around a couple 100 pounds. So it's, you know, it's something that it drives very unique and they're very nimble. So the racing is very, very close.
Um, what I guess, how do you end up qualifying for something like this? Because, you know, you picture people going through certain stages when it comes to other sports. How do you end up that you're racing in a circuit in Germany?
Yeah, so I think this is something that karting doesn't do very well. Is it's really kind of anyone can get a karting license because karting is kind of the first step in the motorsport, and then as you climb that ladder, the requirements become a lot more. So there's, you know, a minimum finishing position for a certain amount of races, but as far as karting goes, is it's by your age, and that determines what class you're in. So 12 to 14 is junior class, and then 14 to 15, and then 14 and up is senior, and then anything below 12 is it's called cadet. So it's definitely a lot more complicated, the licenses, as you go up in racing. But in terms of karting, is if you get a competition license for your country, is you can go out and race.
Well, and I noticed you mentioned the is it DEKM, or is that how
Yeah,
you say it? Yeah.
yeah,
So that's the German circuit, correct?
yeah.
And so I noticed when I was looking at its website that there was quite a gap between the guy who had the most points down below. So is that an indication of driving skill, or is that an indication of the cars that people are driving?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of electric karting that makes it so much different from normal karting, is that everyone is given a spec kart. So everyone is on the same engine, same chassis, basically as even as you can get it in karting. And so really those points is the first place gets a certain amount of points, and then the points go down as you go down the order. So it's really down to driver skill instead of, you know, the stereotypical karting, which is pay to win, is you have the best chassis, best engine, is that doesn't exist in e-karting. So all the results that you see is those drivers earned it.
So you finished fifth, or you were in fifth place in what I saw. Was that the end of the season, or is this the season that's going on right now?
Yes, that's the first weekend, and then that's the same series we were here for this weekend, and then that goes on all through our stay, and then we're doing 3 different kart series, so that's 3 different karts in 3 different countries. So it's a lot of traveling around, but usually each series kind of has about 5 races that we do, and then at the end, whoever has the most points that they've kind of accumulated through the championship is then they're kind of the best e-kart racer for that series.
So when you look at the stats, because the guy who finished first, I guess, got 75 or 70 some points. Is he that much better than everybody else, or is he beatable, Ellis?
I think everyone's beatable. Everyone's got a weakness. But yeah, the racing is super close. You know, we measure things in racing in tenths of a second and hundredths of a second. So if you look at the qualifying, which is basically the best lap time around the circuit, it sets the grid for the races that come. I think from third place to 10th is everyone was in 0.2 of a second to each other. So really like a snap, and that's how close everything is. So and that's the beauty of the spec series, is that it can be that close instead of having, you know, kind of like Formula One where the top 5 they go and then everyone else is 10 seconds back by the end of the race. It's really close, which is why I love it.
You know, I think about it, and I picture driving around, because of course when I was young I did the go-karting, and
Yeah.
but it never dawned on me to take it to racing stages. You know, it was just a fun Saturday thing to do. What is it about racing that appeals to you?
Racing is kind of like chess going. It's kind of like chess at 80 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour. It's when you really break it down into what you're thinking and what you're doing, is it's so much strategy, and it's really about just you versus kind of yourself. Because if someone's going faster than you, that means that the cart's capable of doing it. That just means that you aren't extracting the most out of the cart. And it's being on that edge of the limit where you're not spinning off, but you're also going fast enough that you're winning. So it's definitely that kind of thrill of speed, and of course battling on track is awesome. The racing's close, overtakes, defending, and all that is really what I enjoy.
Well, we started off the show by showing, I believe it was just you on a track, maybe one other person just going around. We have another video that you gave to us that shows a little bit more racing in it. So maybe we can take a look at that right now and see what it looks like. So were you in that race?
Yeah.
Did you get the checkered flag?
Yeah, so that one on the end clip as I crossed the line P2. So that was a good one. That was a gamble actually for us. Is the track was basically half wet because it was raining all day, and it stopped. So everyone put on their wet tires. So in karting we have two tires: is the dry and the wet tires. And the wet tires kind of look similar to your road car, where it kind of has the treads in them, and that pushes the water out so we can get down to the concrete, so we don't aquaplane and kind of just skate along. Whereas the dry tires are just basically slicks, so it's no tread, nothing. It's kind of just a flat surface. So me and basically one other driver were the only ones who put on the dry tires. And after 3 laps, the track started to dry up. So the wet tires always struggle when the track dries up. So it was kind of just keeping it on track for 3 laps and then maneuver yourself through the field so you kind of cross that finish line as high as possible.
Well, and that's part of the strategy, right? Is trying to get the right equipment in the right place. It was neat hearing them there, because while they don't have the engine that karts do, hearing that hum reminds me of when we had an Indy race here in Edmonton, and that's all you heard from those cars was a hum as they went past you, a little bit faster than you. But I mean, they're wearing seatbelts, so it makes sense. Yeah. They go a little bit faster. But that hum, to me, sort of indicates speed. Almost more than a rumble might. Is you just hear this hum and it just zips right past you.
Yeah, I always think they kind of sound like the Star Wars, the TIE fighters, as they kind of like whoosh by with the kind of like futuristic hum, and I think it's really cool. And some people don't like the way it sounds, but I do really think it sounds cool. And it helps us. It's definitely being able to hear the tires like you can. I'm sure you heard in the video, is especially trying to find that limit of where the tire will let you go. Is being able to hear them like that is something that's really, really different.
One of the things I found in driving those cars years ago is that, and clearly it wasn't going the same speed, but you really felt like you were stuck to the track lots of times. Do you feel that as well?
Yeah. So these karts have a lot of grip, especially as the day goes on. Is the little bits of rubber that come off the tire kind of go in the concrete, and that makes the line, and that line when you're going through some of the corners, as if it's grippy enough, is actually the rear tire on the inside will actually lift up because there's so much grip that the cart is flexing enough that one of the tires lifts up. So we're really, really glued down.
Yeah. When that tire lifts up, good feeling or terrifying?
Yeah, it's a really, really good thing, because that's what you need in these carts. Is it's not, not pitching you up on your side, but these carts, the rear axle is solid, so there's no differential. So having that tire in the air it makes that cornering easier, because the inside and the outside tire have to spin at different rates. So having that inside tire kind of off the ground helps with the low speed corners.
Very interesting. Tell us, I guess, if you can, you've touched on what the car is a little bit, but give us a little bit more insight into the vehicle that you're racing, what even it might cost to put together something like this as well.
Yeah, so the Rotax E20 is interesting, because it's always hard with these, is you can't really put a price on them right now, because they're all kind of prototype material. Is everything that they're building themselves, and they don't really want to sell them, because then a competitor series would buy it and then tear it apart and look at what they're doing to get an advantage over them. So but Rotax right now is the biggest series that there is. So their carts, they actually have 2 batteries on each side, and that really helps with weight balances. That's the hardest thing to do with these carts, is to get the balance of the cart properly so that one side's not heavier than the other. But yeah, it's always hard to kind of name the price on the tech, because everyone's kind of doing their own thing, and they're all, really one of a kind.
Well, but you said that all the cars are the same. So how is it that, like, are you talking about different circuits or doing different things, or what exactly do you mean by that?
Yeah, so there's basically right now there's a couple major companies that kind of produce their own cart, and those all run in their own series. So for the DEKM, everyone's in a Rotax cart, and if I go to the Blue Shock series, everyone's in a Blue Shock cart. So that's kind of the spec nature that is really great, is that no one has an advantage just because of their chassis or their motor or anything like that. But actually, some of the tracks now, I was in one for that actually weekend from the video, Wackersdorf, is they get all their power from solar panels, and that's really interesting to see the track's infrastructure kind of shift towards green energy.
So I mean, when it comes to other races, and kart probably isn't like this, because you're not going to have a pit stop and fill up in kart racing, I don't imagine. But is there a chance that the car won't make it to the end of the race?
It's honestly, for the biggest issue that we found in electric isn't actually, at least for karts as we drive, is that it's not really the battery life or autonomy that's the problem. It's cooling for us. Is our power gets pulled back when things get too hot. It's kind of like a computer, that if your PC gets too hot, it slows down a little bit to kind of protect the components. So with the Rotax cart, is we can make it to the end of the race and still have 20-30% left in the battery. So battery life isn't really the kind of kink that we have right now. Is really the main thing, is the cooling.
All right, we've shown a couple of videos now, and we've got a bunch of photos that you sent us as well. So maybe we can put up a couple of the racing photos, and you can give us a bit of a description as to what might be going on, because I'm not positive, but I think your dad may have taken some of these photos, because you seem to be at the front in all of them. So clearly that says something about your driving. But if we can see some of the racing photos, and you can go into that description, or you know what, maybe we sit here and we can't see some of those racing photos, because I don't see any of the photos popping up just yet. There we go. Well,
there we go.
So this isn't a racing one. Tell us about this. This is the sim one, right?
Yeah. So this is my old sim rig back home, and this is really cool. Is that's how I always practice. Is I have a VR headset on, so basically 360 degrees, I can look around and see everything, and it's really, really cool when you put that headset on. It's really immersive, and it really does make a difference in my driving.
And do you find yourself leaning back and forth as you're going around turns and stuff when you're sitting in that sim as
Yeah,
well?
I think I definitely, sometimes by instinct lean into the corner a little bit, even though there's, no G-force pulling me. But
Fair enough. Now let's see what photo pops up here. So here's a photo. I think you're car 411, aren't you?
yep, that's me.
Right. And you're at is this one of your dad's photos?
So I think this is one of the track photographers. Is the
Okay.
DEKM has a track photographer, and it's always the riskiest spots they have to sit in is always the best shots. So
Absolutely. And if he's really, got nerves of steel, he's probably lying down on the ground waiting
yeah,
to run over to get that shot. So I'm looking at this shot right now. Clearly, you're out in front, and I'm looking at number 417, and he seems to be looking at you as well.
yeah.
So what's happening at this stage of the race?
Yeah, so this is right off the start. Basically the lights just went out, and I kind of got the jump a little bit as I'm about half a cart length ahead, and he's basically looking to see if he can try and hold it around the outside of the corner, or if the guy that's behind me in the yellow helmet is far back enough to kind of slot back in behind me. And it's really kind of just having that spatial awareness to know what's going on around you. That's kind of what separates the good drivers from the great drivers. So it's a lot of information at once, but I'm basically looking straight ahead, just trying to get out of there quick and get through the first corner in one piece.
So at this point here, are you, like you mentioned the turn, so will you be turning to your right as you're going ahead here?
Yeah, so this is basically it's a little left kink that we're going through, and
Yeah.
then right after that is it's a really fast right corner. So it's basically full throttle. So like you said, about 70 miles an hour, and then right into a really, really heavy braking zone in the kind of a 180-degree corner. That's really, really good passing opportunity. So I'd probably be positioning myself to the inside to kind of block off anyone trying to overtake me.
So I guess if you get out in front, you don't have to be like 417 and look around to see where everybody else is.
Yeah, what's behind you doesn't matter. Only focus on what's in front of you.
Well, let's move on to the next photo and see if you can tell us about this. So this is a great shot because it shows how close to the ground you are, and it gives us a good sense that there is really nothing protecting you.
Yeah.
And so tell us here, do you think you were out in front here? Are you leading the race at this point?
I think this is the qualifying session. So this is basically get out on track alone, so you don't have anyone holding you up, and just set the fastest lap possible. And you could see the way my head is I'm actually kind of looking ahead. So this is a 180-degree corner, as you're actually kind of looking, in this case towards the right of where the exit of the corner is. So you're kind of never looking straight ahead in racing. So I like this because you really see, how low, like you said, the cart is, and there's, how open air it is.
Well, and I'm looking at it. So what might it be? Maybe like 2 inches off the ground?
Yeah, it's just about that. And if we go fast enough through the corner and the tire kind of deforms enough, is we'll scrape on the ground a little bit.
Really? Now, so I'm looking now at the side of the car where the 411 is and just above it, because you mentioned that is this one of the vehicles that had solar panels that would be charging the batteries?
No, so that's actually the two batteries there, and then the little silver thing is the water cooler. It's the radiator for the engine, or electric motor that we say.
Yeah.
And that basically is water goes in and out that, and the air kind of cools it down to keep everything chilled so it doesn't overheat. But all the charging that we do at this particular circuit is all from solar panels.
Okay, so it's a flat base then on either side of you, and that's the battery. All right, let's move on to the next picture. I have no idea what it is. So here we are racing again. You're going through another turn. Are there any straightaways in these races?
Yeah, it's usually kind of one long straight at the front of the circuit. And that's kind of like your kind of rest for a couple seconds to kind of gather yourself before you go into the next lap. But it's a lot of twists and turns.
So I'm looking here. I don't see number 417 anywhere anymore.
Yeah, so this was actually after a pretty bad qualifying. Is I got caught up in kind of a group, and then had a penalty, a 5-second penalty at the end. So I had to start basically the back of the grid. So this is probably a couple laps in, and I kind of worked my way up through that pack.
So how easy or difficult, I guess, is it to pass somebody? Because those turns look really tight. And I mean, just looking at this particular turn, maybe 3 vehicles wide. It's
Yeah.
not that wide. So is there a lot of passing in the turns, or are you waiting till you hit the straightaway?
For us, it's really it's interesting. Is it always looks very like kind of like you're winging it when you overtake, but we're actually kind of planning out an overtake, 2 or 3 corners ahead. So usually the last corner for this circuit is if you can kind of come out of the corner faster, and then it's if you go in behind someone's go-kart on the straight, is they're breaking the air for you, so you kind of get sucked up to their bumper. And then it's basically just waiting for that perfect moment in the brake zone to just go to the inside line and brake them much later.
So, so when we're looking at this, how many laps do you end up doing, and how many miles or kilometers would the race be?
So I think this track's probably about 1 kilometer. I think maybe 1.1, but we do about 15 laps. So, and that's a lot of work for the driver, especially if it's hot out. You're sweating, and it's carrying that cart around for 15 laps is very, very fatiguing.
How long is the race?
So sometimes the races are by laps, sometimes it's by time. This race was probably about 12, 13 minutes because the lap's just under a minute. But some of the races in the other series, like Blue Shock, it's 15 minutes and then 1 lap. So after you cross the line, when it's been 15 minutes, you do 1 more lap, and then that's the end, kind of like a Formula E.
Sure. Now, 15 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but I mean, even when I used to play tennis, I could focus on maybe 1 or 2 shots, and then I'd start to lose focus. You can't lose focus for 15 minutes straight. And I imagine just, from the vibrations and the stress of the turns, your arms and shoulders and core are probably almost aching by the end of this, aren't they?
Yeah, it's for me, as I do a lot of work in the gym in the off season to kind of prepare my body to race this much. So at the physical kind of exertion part is something that I've gotten a lot better at, and it doesn't affect me as much as it's really because your adrenaline's so high, as it's so mentally tiring, kind of like you say, keeping focus for that long and really not making a mistake, because you see how close everyone is if you go a little wide in one corner, is 4 carts will go past you. So it's definitely mentally fatiguing.
Yeah, and now you mentioned about your off track, and this is I think what people will get a sense of is what you do, because you've got some videos showing your off track training. Tell us a little bit about that and some of the things that you feel are important for you to do to be able to achieve the standard you need to when you hit the course.
Yeah, so the off track kind of preparation is really a lot of strengthening of the upper body, because the pedals aren't really that physically fatiguing as it's holding the wheel, and kind of your neck is another big one. Is I have this, it looks kind of funny, but it goes on my head, and then there's a band that goes on the front, and it kind of pulls my neck, and I like move and then rotate to kind of train those muscles that a normal person doesn't really use that much in their daily life. So, and then really the hardest thing is grip strength, because you're holding on to this wheel that's really just trying to get yanked out of your hands at every opportunity. So it's a lot of kind of carrying weights on either side and going and walking, and then lots of body weight stuff, so pull-ups, push-ups, and then kind of really just tension. Being under kind of tension for a long time is what really helps.
Well, and so that is that why you also do the massage and the acupuncture and the cupping as well?
Yeah, and that really helps with recovery and kind of being, loose and relaxed, and it kind of gives your muscles that ability to not, be too tight, because, it's really easy to lose that about, yourself, of being, kind of cramped all the time and kind of pent up with sitting in the cart. So the acupuncture, the cupping, and lots of stretching every day, and it's really a lot of work, but it pays off.
So what is your day like then? A typical day, first off, during the season, but not on a race day or a practice day. What is your day like when it comes to preparing yourself, your mind, and your body for that race?
So usually I'll wake up, and then I do always meditate in the morning and stretch. So those are two things that are important to kind of have in your daily routine. And then I'll usually do some of my schoolwork early in the day to kind of just get that kind of over with and out of the way, so I can in the afternoon usually do a lot of sim racing. So I'll race online and maybe practice some of the tracks that I'll be at. And then usually every other day is do a workout at home. It's kind of hard with COVID, as we don't really have access to a gym here in Germany. So doing that kind of little workout that just keeps me fresh and kind of almost always prepared and ready. So, and usually always just get as much sleep as possible, as sleep is the best thing, especially, having kind of being back in that rhythm of getting a good night's sleep before every day.
Right now, you mentioned school because you're 15, you're in high school, I imagine. How are you making that work for yourself? I mean, it's an interesting time because COVID meant a lot of people were studying from home, but you would end up having to do that anyway. So tell us what it's like keeping up on your schoolwork, because you're not putting in a full day of school every day. I don't know.
Yeah. So what I did this season is I basically kind of front loaded a lot of my kind of work. Is I did a lot of that work in the 4 months that I was back home in the off season, so that while I'm here, is I can focus on racing and still doing the off kind of days. I have some assignments that are really just tailored to racing. So I'm studying electrical engineering in an online course. So that's something that really helps me to understand how the karts work, and really just kind of practical things, public speaking, making presentations, giving presentations, and just those skills that I need, instead of learning things that I won't really use in my kind of career, is being able to work with people back in the States beyond school, as they're really helping me. We check in once a week and kind of just go along with what I can finish in the time that I have when I'm not racing.
So you're not then going for your high school diploma. You are looking at things that will help you out with what appears to be your chosen career.
Yeah, exactly. That's really it's the best part about it is, for me, is that I can pick and choose what I want to learn and what I feel like I need to learn to be successful. And that really, really helps me be a more successful driver, because understanding those little things that you can intelligently talk to the people that built the kart when you have issues or anything like that. So not necessarily a traditional education, but it's really working well for me. And my mom was a teacher in middle school as well, so she kind of also helps keep me on track.
So not only is she the director of the universe, but she is also the taskmaster in the house.
Yes, exactly. She keeps me in line.
that is great to have. We haven't touched on it. I mean, so racing is what you want to do with your life.
Yeah.
You've decided that.
All in.
Okay. So what are some of the next steps then you have to do? How do you make that happen from e-karting?
Yeah, so we already are kind of taking those steps to move on from karts, because I'm kind of making up for lost time right now, is I have to move through my career at a kind of accelerated rate. So in January, when we get back home, is I'll be racing in an electric Formula car by ERA. So they're doing a boot camp in California for 4 weeks. So I'm the first driver for that. And that'll be really great, as they're doing everything really. It's not just the track time. It's how do you do in like mock press conferences, the fitness side, marketing, and all that. So that's kind of that next step that I'm taking, and really just trying to grow my following on social media, because that's really what all the drivers these days in racing have now, is that following that gets you those opportunities.
So people may not know what an ERA car is, but we have a picture that you provided for us as well. And it's got you sitting in one of these cars. That doesn't look at all like an e-kart, my friend.
Yeah. So that's basically an entry level formula chassis. So it's kind of really the next step that you make from karts into cars is something like this. Is there's lots of elements that's downforce. So that basically is using the air that passes over the car to kind of push it down onto the track, which gives you much more grip than a kart, and having that suspension and weight transfer that suspension gives you, and much more grip, much more speed. It's definitely something that's really, really cool to see and watch them develop.
Now, is this an electric vehicle as well, or is this a gas vehicle?
This is all electric.
It's all electric as well. So
Yeah.
do you think that you will be able to stay racing electric vehicles? Is that the goal?
Yeah, that's really the goal. I've been all electric this year so far, practice and racing. So going down this electric path has really given me a lot of opportunities to, like I said, meet people that I would never meet and race against these amazing drivers. So, and it's really where motorsport is going, because the trend of motorsport is that the technology that they learn and develop in motorsport gets transferred into road cars. And if road cars are going into electric, then what better way to kind of test out that tech and innovate than in motorsport?
So do you feel then, like, if you decide to stay with this means you're not going to be doing the Daytona 500. You're not going to be doing Formula One and that sort of thing. Are you hoping that e-racing continues to progress as you get older and get better, and there are other opportunities as you go that way?
Yeah, that's spot on, really, of what's kind of what we're aiming for right now, is because and we're seeing it already, is there's series popping up now that didn't exist a year ago. So it's always hard for me to kind of choose where I exactly want to go. But that's kind of the beauty of it, is that there could be, a series that comes out tomorrow, a month from now, a year from now, that's exactly what I want. Or, having to it's a little bit of kind of a gamble as well, as that going all in with something like this. But the trend so far is that it's been really successful with the series that have been developed. The Formula E, there's ETCR, which is electric touring cars, which is really, really cool to see. They just had their first race in Valaguna. So there's definitely some championships that probably aren't even around yet that'll be around in the coming years. So kind of banking on that.
Is there a risk that the racing industry won't keep up with your demands and your desires?
There's always a risk like that. I think I'm in a very lucky spot that, because of, especially with ERA, is that, I'm at a point where this is going to be their first year, their first kind of year of having the car open to drivers. So I'm just at that age requirement. So hopefully that kind of continues, that as I get older, this ladder to the tops continues to develop, and being able to be an advocate and kind of an ambassador for electric motorsport is something that is also really important, to be able to talk intelligently about it. And when they do ask you to, hop on with them to show it off to people that may be looking at purchasing a car, or whether they want to, race the kart or anything like that, is something that it's definitely important with this side of motorsport.
Well, tell us about the importance of the environment for you, because clearly, I mean, an e-vehicle is something that should, help protect the environment down the road. Tell us about your commitment to trying to make a difference when it comes to climate as well.
Yeah, so for me, racing has kind of allowed me to do what I've been calling passive activism. Is, I'm not really, kind of marching the streets and stuff like that, but being able to race electric lets me be an advocate for climate change and caring for the environment and green energy, while still doing what I love and what I'm passionate about. So that's definitely something that is a great thing for me, is that it lets me show my care for the earth and the environment while still doing what I enjoy.
Well, and to be clear, you're not just somebody who drives an electric vehicle, as a racer. You and your parents, while you're traveling around Europe, have had the opportunity to drive an e-vehicle as well. Tell us about that experience.
Yeah, that was definitely, a very interesting experience to have. Our biggest problem with charging is there was a lot of charging stations that, this app or this payment and you need this card, or it doesn't work right now, but then you're out of charge, so you go somewhere else. So I think Tesla really has it down with their kind of ecosystem that they've built with their car and their charger. But, especially ZapCharge is seeing that more people are taking it seriously of developing that infrastructure for charging is something that, was a big problem for us last year. That to see people already finding solutions for that is really great.
Tell us about, okay, I have to ask this because, again, I can't remember if this was in your email or if this was in on your website, but you had some challenges finding charging stations. How do I phrase this properly and fix it so you're not grounded? How'd your parents cope with that?
It was interesting because when we went to go kind of get the electric van the first night, that's when we had a lot of our problems because we weren't really set up correctly with the proper apps, or kind of Germany has their kind of like electric charging card that every station accepts. So we didn't really have that. And we got home and my mom was like, oh, it couldn't be that bad. It can't be that terrible. And, it should be fine. And a couple trips in when we couldn't find a charging station or the charging station didn't work then they were like, oh, okay, now we see why it's difficult. But, I think even we've seen it's gotten better. We see a lot more charging stations now, and there's constantly being steps forward being taken to kind of improve something like that.
Right. Everybody looked like they were smiling in that picture as people.
Yeah.
So clearly that was a good day, or all three of you are amazing actors. So before I let you go, you're a young man. Racing is what you want to do. Do you have any favorites on the racing circuit that you look up to?
My all-time favorite driver is Ayrton Senna. He raced F1 in a period where the cars were definitely kind of beasts. They were fast and hard to drive. So, and just kind of his style and his work ethic on the track he's someone that I definitely look up to. I mean, he's my wallpaper on my phone. I got all my liveries in sim racing are based off of his kind of car design. So he's definitely the driver that I look up to.
Well, and so if people are interested in finding out more about you and learning more about e-karting, there's a couple of great shots of you there. You're getting set for ERA, and there you are in your kart outfit as well. You know what I mean? Where can people find out more about you and follow you?
Yeah, so I'm Elysium Racing on Instagram. You can follow me there, and we basically post almost daily of what's kind of happening with the karting and all the racing. And then my website is elysium.co. There's basically all the media that we have, sponsorship opportunities, and basically everything is on there. So if you're interested in learning about me, then make sure you go and check those out.
Do you have any sponsors that you'd like to give a shout out to who have been instrumental in helping you get to this stage?
Yes. So Hudson River Athletics back home, is they help me with all my fitness, and they kind of give me that gym and atmosphere to go to help me train and be prepared. And Touring Kart Championship they are indoor karting championship back home in the States, and they started up this year, and I had the pleasure of racing with them in New York for their first kind of round. And they've definitely been, someone that I've kind of am connected to, because that's where I started. I started in those indoor rental kart races, and now I'm here. So they're definitely a great, kind of team if you want to check them out and you're around in the Jersey area, New York area, to go do some racing.
And there's one other sponsor that I think is key to making all of this work for you. And this sponsor, I can't believe I'm having to bring it up for you, but clearly they're instrumental in helping you with your social media. They're instrumental in helping you with your videos. And perhaps you can tell us about them, because they've got their own website, which is pretty impressive as well.
Yeah. So my parents are really the ones who kind of are the ones behind the scenes that not a lot of people see all the time, but they're really what's kind of keeping this running as well. It's a lot of they do a lot of hard work. My dad does all the branding, so all the logos, this T-shirt and the website and everything is there. They really do put in a lot of hard work, and my mom does all the research and the kind of managing and logistics side of things. So having them support me has been absolutely amazing, and I couldn't ask for anyone better to be behind me.
Right. And I'm not a social media expert, but I would think this would be the time to say the name of their company too.
Yes, so their film company is Films by Francesco. They do weddings and events, and I'm always think that my dad does enjoy filming race cars too. So
Well, I would think that from looking at your website, I'm going to guess that he does. And what a great opportunity to be able to tie in their skill set with your skill set as well. And I wish you and your family the best of luck with this experience. I don't know if you would classify yourself as a phenom, but you seem like a very, very impressive young man. And I wish you the best with your future and all that comes to you as far as racing is concerned.
yeah, thank you. It's been a lot of fun being on the show and getting to chat about what I love. So thanks for having me.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ellis. And again, we've been chatting with Ellis Spezia here, and wow, 15 years old. I was not that composed when I was 15. I'm not sure if I was that composed and that well-spoken when I was 30. I kind of hope I've hit it now, but what an amazing young man. And I know in North America, racing is popular in certain parts of the country, but hopefully we've introduced you to a young man here, and maybe you can follow his career as he progresses through the various ranks. And e-racing, you know what? If Ellis has his way, it's going to be the way of the future. So let's wish him the best of luck. And again, if you want to keep up with him, check out elysium.co, and his Instagram is @elysium_racing.